Well, welcome to
Wisdom TV
with Dan
and Lee.
And today we've got a really power-packed show. I don't know if we're going to get it all in. There's just so much interesting things in the world. Isn't there, Miss Lee?
There sure are.
What is interesting in your life this week?
Let's see. You mean this thing sitting on my lap? That would be pretty interesting to me.
What was that?
How God answered a prayer for giving me a little dog.
You mean God is sovereign over your life and He even cares about your puppies?
He does. Yep, He does.
He does. The Bible in in Matthew even talks about He cares, He knows even about every hair of our head. And that's why we talk to God and we ask Him for little things. And Miss Lee was quite discouraged about losing her other little dog months ago, almost a year ago, isn't it?
Yeah, a little over a year.
Little dinky dog who lived with us for quite a long time and helped us do shows all over the country, and was just a sweet little dog, little toy poodle, 5 pounds. And we didn't have a lot of resources, and we didn't have a lot of money, and so we set aside just a little bit of money. We really didn't think we could get a dog, right?
Right, yeah, everything I saw was like 10 times as much.
Especially Miss Lee didn't think we could, and we just kept praying and praying, and because she was so discouraged. And so many times we do that in our lives. We think that God really doesn't love our little things we love. And He says, set your mind upon Him, and all these other things will be added unto you. And Miss Lee did that because she struggled with the budget, but she did it, and the Lord blessed us. It was awesome. And we have this little dog now. What's her name?
Her name's Lily.
Lily!
Little Lily!
And we'll show you a picture of her sometime, but today we don't have that
She's
available.
a non-curly-haired poodle.
That's right. She's a non-curly-haired.
Called a Jack Russell Terrier.
Jack Russell Terrier, that's right. So anyway, today we're on what date?
Today is the 16th of December.
Okay, and we're going to have about 3 verses that we're going to work on. And we have such a wonderful application of this passage today. Larry Arnn in Imprimis magazine, which I get every month, just from Hillsdale College. He's the president of Hillsdale College, and he just does such an excellent job of explaining and developing the whole Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and really the whole nature of man. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But let's just read in Proverbs and start off from there and see what we're going to get.
All right, we're starting with verse 6, Proverbs 16. Through love and faithfulness, sin is atoned for. Through the fear of the Lord, a man avoids evil. And did you want me to go on and read all the verses?
Well, again, fear of the Lord, man avoids evil. It's not just fear of the Lord to come to Him. And fear isn't like we're scared to death, but we should be, because He has the power of life and death over us. He has the power of annihilation and the power over every aspect of our lives. But go on.
When a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, He makes even his enemies live at peace with him. Better a life with righteousness than much gain with injustice.
And this is a very interesting thing, because we're going to talk a lot about Woodrow Wilson today, and how Woodrow Wilson left the foundations of fear of the Lord and moved to evolutionary science as the foundation of his political system. And Larry Arnn develops this so well, and we're going to read from him. But Woodrow Wilson was the beginning of this great disaster that has happened here in America, of this monster government that has developed. And
is this kind of the part where it says, little with righteousness, better than much gain with injustice?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Woodrow Wilson just took us away from our foundation, which is God created us, and He created man, and we have a certain nature. And we're going to talk about that today. But go ahead and read more.
That was all the Proverbs we had down.
Oh, well, read that last one again. I'm sorry.
Okay. Better a little with righteousness than much gain with injustice.
Okay, I forgot you think.
I put it all together. Sorry about that.
Well, man actually here was when he forgets God, he tends to go after stuff. Stuff meaning money, meaning the stuff money buys. He begins to go after his own self-interest as opposed to God's interest. And this is what Woodrow Wilson brought us to see. Now, our founding fathers didn't go there. Our founding fathers, and we'll go to one of the major founding fathers. That would be James Madison. Miss Lee, you want to read what James Madison said?
Sure, let me read
the
this quote.
Federalist 51 about the nature of man and the nature of the whole system of government we have. This is profound.
Okay, so James Madison writes in Federalist 51, "What is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature?"
Now, stop right there. What is government itself except the reflection,
the greatest of all
the
reflections.
greatest reflection of all of human nature? And just to help us get this, because I had to read this a whole bunch of times to get this. Why do we even, he's really saying, why do we even have to have government? Why don't we just do what's right? In other words, when your child is born and comes out of the womb, do we not train him to do what's right, or does he just do what's right?
Oh, I think we have to train them.
Really? The kids weren't selfish? They were good? They were angels?
No.
Oh, why do people call little children angels, or do they call them?
They do call them angels.
Sometimes. But what do they call them a lot of times?
Brats.
Little devils. Yeah. And that's the whole thing that Madison, the whole concept that we have to have government is the greatest reflection on human nature, because man doesn't naturally do what is right. He needs government.
Even Adam and Eve, who had the perfect relationship with God, did wrong.
Well, what's interesting, they started the problem. We all live within their nature. They had the opportunity because they had the freedom that we don't have. We have sin natures. We have a fallen world. We have
a
the
lot
devil.
going against us that they didn't.
They only had the temptation from the devil, but they didn't have sin natures, and
Right.
they didn't have an imperfect world. So go on, because he start again. Read that first sentence, and then we'll
Can I
let
go
you
on?
read into the second sentence.
What is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary.
Now, see, this is important. Madison saw something very significant. If men were, their nature was the nature of an angel, they just want to please God. That's their nature. And there wouldn't have to be any government. Angels don't have to be told what is right or wrong. They do by nature what is right, what God wants. But we aren't angels, and therefore we need government. But go on.
If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary.
This is really a profound statement.
I thought it was when I first read it too.
Why did you think so? Because I kind of missed it when I first read it.
Well, you think that in the Bible it says that government is to avenge evil and further good. That's what we read in the Bible. That's the purpose of government. And so you would think that would be the internal control. Government knows to do that. Avenge evil, further good. But because those running the government and government itself does not have this angelic nature.
But what nature do they have? What nature
they
do
have the sin nature of men.
They're
because
men too.
are
That's
running
right.
it.
They're
Yeah.
men too.
And so they also have, and because the internal is not always good, you have to have external controls also.
In other words, just because we elect somebody
Others to watch you, I guess.
to Congress doesn't mean that
They're going to do good.
magically makes them good.
Right.
Matter of fact, we still know that they will tend to do bad
Yeah.
because they are men, not angels. So when he talks about we need external and internal controls on government. He's saying it is a necessity, is the nature of things. The nature of government is such that we have to have these internal and external controls because man is fallen. He's created in the image of God, so he's angelic in some ways, but he's a little devil in other words. Just like we see children. They're wonderful in some times and little devils the other times. And this is where this man, Woodrow Wilson, who was inaugurated in the turn of the century, actually began to move our country away from the nature of government of being limited and protected, and that these officials couldn't be elitist and do anything they want to. He actually believed that there should be a governing elite because we had evolved to that point. And Larry Arnn has this great little piece. It's a few paragraphs. I want you to read this, Lee, because this really sums up how Woodrow Wilson made this transition that began to attack the Declaration of Independence and the Founding Fathers and James Madison.
Okay, this is Larry Arnn. In other words, human nature is such that human beings need to be governed. We need government if we are not to descend into anarchy. But since human beings will make up the government itself must be limited, or it will become tyrannical. Just as we outside the government require to be governed, those inside the government require to be governed. And that has to be strictly arranged because those inside the government need, and they will have, a lot of power. Against this way of thinking, Woodrow Wilson argued that progress and evolution had brought human beings to a place and time where we didn't have to worry about limited government. He rejected what the founders identified as a fixed or unchanging human nature, and thought we should be governed by an elite class of people who are not subject to political forces or constitutional checks and balances. A class of people such as we find in our modern bureaucracy. This form of government would operate above politics, acting impartially in accordance with reason. Now, it's pretty easy for us today to judge whether Wilson or the founders were right about this. Look at our government today. Is the bureaucracy politically impartial? Is it efficient and rational, as if staffed by angels? Or is it politically motivated and massively self-interested?
Well, what would you say, Miss? Isn't that profound?
Statement.
Because the problems we face today comes directly from Woodrow Wilson taking our educational system and our system of government, and he was a college professor and a president of a college.
He didn't learn much, though, in his education.
Well, no, he learned evolution. See,
Yeah.
the colleges, the universities had made the shift. And why? It's not the particulars of evolution, it's the idea that everything is evolving and the nature of man is evolving to where even today, where we have such a serious problem, because we've even come down to the point where even the nature of man in sex is evolving and homosexuality is normal as opposed to immoral. We can thank Woodrow Wilson for all these issues. But we need to realize the beginning of wisdom is to know the Lord. And He created us, and our natures have not changed. We still need a Savior, we still need government, and government needs government. And that's why self-government and limited government are so essential, even in the 21st century.